Hello and welcome everyone. Hopefully at this point you have Python and VS Code installed. Once you do, please open up VS Code. You can do that by going to the Start menu, pressing the Windows key on your keyboard and then typing in Visual Studio Code. Make sure you select Visual Studio Code, not full Visual Studio. It looks different. What you should see is something similar to this. You'll see the Start page. So if I started a new window here, so if I do a new window, you'll see something closer to this pop up. You'll see some Start, Featured, some other things. If it's your first time, you won't have as many things on your VS Code. Like mine, for example, has source control, debugger you might already have, a remote explorer, and a bunch of other things that I have for teaching computer science. But for you, all you need to do is go to your extensions, type in Python, and then you're going to click on this, and then there should be an install button right here for you to install the Python extension. Once that's installed, you'll be able to start coding in Python. I'm just going to close that. Go back up to the Explorer. Now, I already have a folder open. This is where I'm going to have all my Unit 1 example files. Of course, I don't have the Unit 1 section 0 because I want to save that to show you how to do it today. So to make a file, so once you already have Python installed and you're sitting at your Explorer, you don't actually have to be sitting here, but it helps. You won't see all of this yet. These are all the files I've made. You will get to this point. So I'm going to go to File, New File, Python file. If it's not there, type in the word Python, and then you can pick either or. If I hit Create New Python File, it's going to take me to this, and it's going to ask me what I want to save it as. Don't save it as python.py. I'm going to save it as Unit 1, Section 0, so U1S0. And if it's an example, EX1, and then .py. The .py part is really important. If it's not saved as .py, then the computer won't know it's a Python file. So when it goes to code it, it doesn't know what language to use. And we're telling it by naming it a .py file that this is a Python file. So now it knows how to interpret it and actually make that code for us. Okay, if I want to start typing, I can. This is a sentence. Okay, I did. Now I'm getting lots of underlines. If you've coded, or not coded, but written in a Word document before, or Google Docs, then you'll recognize these as like grammatical errors or spelling errors. The computer doesn't read plain English as code. So I'm going to add a hashtag or a number sign in front. Number sign for the older folk out there like myself, or a pound symbol. It looks like that. It's like a little tic-tac-toe symbol. I'll call it a hashtag from now on because I think that's the common nomenclature. If you add a hashtag out in front, you can now type any English you want and the computer will ignore it. This is called a comment. How is this useful though? If we think about it, we're going to have people reading our code at some point. So we can use comments to describe what we are doing as we're coding it. This is very, very useful in industry as well as a learning strategy. Because when you go to look at your old code and you're questioning, okay, how did I do this thing? Or you're looking back to refresh your memory on some sort of strategy that you used. Using a comment to explain it in English is easier than rereading your code. So this will speed up your ability to learn and reuse your old material. Okay, so now I have a one-line comment. I could add another line comment by adding another hashtag. This is also a comment. Okay, so now we know how to add one-line comments. Maybe we need to add a bigger description that would take multiple lines. Now I'm really zoomed in here, so it's nice and easy to see on either a smaller screen or on a projector. So hopefully you can read this a little bit better. Then I'm going to do my block comment, I'm going to do quotation, 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 and the computer automatically fills it in with 3 extra quotations at the end. So now I can start typing after the first 3 quotations, and this will be a block comment. So I can say this is a, and then enter block comment, and then it allows for extra lines. Now we should probably, be a little bit responsible and actually use proper grammar when we do these things. A sentence ends with a period and starts with a capital, so we want to make sure that we're doing that. Now we can see I can add multiple lines in a block comment. I could just do 1-line comments. Chances are we won't use a lot of block comments, but it's a very useful tool that's worth me showing you. Okay, but this doesn't really do anything. The computer's going to ignore all of this when it tries to run code. So this is just a way to kind of sign your work, explain what's happening in each section, leaving little notes for yourself. You can even create to-do lists with this, especially when you have like a project or something like that. It makes it a lot easier to track all the things you need to complete. Let's look at output statements now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete some of those. I just highlighted them with my mouse and then press the backspace or the delete key. Either or will work. If you don't know what delete key does, should be looking at that because it's very useful. It basically backspaces but forward. If I press shift and the end key, it highlights all from where I selected all the way to the end. In the inverse, if I press and hold shift and the home key, it goes all the way to the beginning. Very, very useful tools. I will be using these keys a lot, so might be useful for you to know how to do that. Anyway, let's get started with our outputs now. So output program. And I'm just going to code in this program. I'm going to modify it as I want to change things up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to print hello world, because that is the first thing that, I see my first error. I have double quotes and somehow I got out of them. Type print should turn yellow, lowercase p, not uppercase. We're coding, so this might actually work against like your urge to write grammatically correct. In code, it's usually lowercase. There's certain cases where you do uppercase. We will get to those later in the course. But for print, it's lowercase, and it's a keyword, so it'll turn yellow. Then you add a parentheses. That's the round bracket. If you hear me say bracket, I'll try to remember that this is actually a parenthesis. And then inside the quotations, you put in your text. So now I'm telling the computer, print this thing, and right now it's just empty text. The quotations tells the computer that we're going to enter letters. So now I can enter a series of letters, hello world, and an exclamation point at the end. Then that lets the computer know I want it to print hello world. Now, it's not actually doing anything because I'm still writing the code. I can't run the code and write the code at the same time. So what I do is I write the code and then I can test it. To do that, I can go to run and then run without debugging or start debugging. Either or will work. If I run without debugging, we should see it come up in the terminal. Now, some cases on some computers, especially in the computer labs in Thames Valley, will sometimes go to the debug console and it might show up here. Just click the terminal and it should show up over here. Now, we see all these commands here. That's because when you hit run, VS Code opens a terminal and then runs that command for you so that you don't have to memorize this long line of text to actually like execute a command. You just hit run without debugging, or you can hit start debugging. It'll basically do the same thing. Here, I'll even show you. Run, start debugging, Python file, because it's a Python file. So now it's basically doing the same thing. It hits hello world or it shows hello world, and that's how we get it to print hello world. Next, we have escape characters. So we know how to print one line. What if I want to print a second line? So if I print, this is me. So it says, hello world, this is me. And I'm going to save it. And I did that quickly with a keyboard shortcut, pressing Control S. But you can do this by pressing File and then Save, and it'll save it. I like to use keyboard shortcuts. Makes life a lot easier. I'm going to be using them a lot. So I hit Control S, saved it. Now I can run it. I can press F5, and I'll start running it. It says, hello world, this is me now. Perfect. So now we can add multiple lines. So if I want to, say, write a menu or song lyrics, I could do a print statement for each line. There's other things we can do, though. With print statements, we could add this is me to this one line by just doing \n. This is what's called an escape character. See how it's a different color? \n? What that means is a line break. So, or a new line. Basically meaning the same thing. It's going to move whatever I put in after \n to the next line. So if I write, this is me, and I'm going to change this to this is still me, so that we can see a difference between these two sentences. And then again, I'm going to save, Control S to save, press F5 to run, and it says, hello world, this is me. That's what I typed here. And then it should say, this is still me, so it says, this is still me. Now, this means I could write all of my code, all of my output on one line. However, you should absolutely not do that because it's horrible to read your code when you do that. If you have an entire story written out in one line, it's going to be very difficult to read your code. It looks nice when you run it, but that's not how we should do things. So make sure you use multiple print statements. Usually one per line is good. If you do this occasionally, sometimes \n is very useful. Say you only have 2 lines and you want to use one print statement. Very, very useful. Let me show you something else. Let's get rid of this. Now, if I want to add, sorry, I'm just going to add the quotation in the parentheses at the end there, the end parentheses. If I want to add, say, maybe a backslash, because remember, if I do \n, it changes color and it just prints a new line. But what if I want to print a backslash? Well, to do that, I can do backslash. So if I save and run it, we'll see a backslash there. Perfect. Okay, so that's how I do one single backslash. What if I want to do 2 backslashes? Well, then I got to do 2 more backslashes to actually get 2, because the first one says, hey, computer, this is an escape character. And then the second one says, print a backslash. And then same thing for the last 2. So that's how you get a double backslash here. I'm going to hit Control S and then F5 to show you there's the double backslash. So this is really, really tricky and actually makes things difficult for a lot of programmers. What if I want to do a quotation mark? Ooh. Well, you could just do a backspace, or not backspace, a backslash, and then a quotation mark. And there you go. You got a quotation mark. If I press Control S to save and F5 to run again, there it is. Perfect. So there's a whole table on the course website, which hopefully your teacher has provided you with notes, that has all of, well, not all, but a lot of escape characters. We can't teach you every single escape character because there's new ones added to Unicode every day. So what I'm going to recommend is that you familiarize yourself with the few that are on the website. Use those in your exercises and use those to help you complete your exercises or your daily activities, and then use those as a reference. Sometimes you might have to Google things because it will be impossible for us to teach you every single word of Python. Like print, we'll teach you a lot, but we won't teach you all because we don't have time for that. Just like your English teacher doesn't just teach you words. They might teach you a few vocabulary words and how to structure them in a sentence. That's the same idea with coding. Now, I hope you stuck through this with me. I know it has been a very long lesson. This is usually the longest lesson that I have to go through. But after this, things speed up quite a bit. All the best, and I will catch you in the next one.